Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Grow Support. My name is Neil, and I'm joined today by Mike Heap. We jumped straight into the conversation to start talking about getting started with AI, how you can implement it, some of the things that we've seen in the industry. To be honest, we just kind of jumped in, so that's exactly what we'll do here, and I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Which is it's interesting, and like it's one of these things in as I'm sure you're kind of aware, in the world of AI, things change every day, and
Yeah.
like you're learning things every day, which is great. It keeps you kind of on your toes, doesn't it?
And also, I think what we were talking about in the comment section of LinkedIn, was pretty interesting
Mm.
to me, like how it's just changed the types of things that we need to deal with and the kind of comprehensiveness of it all in that sense.
Yeah, I think so. Like I think and to be honest, it's one of these things, like in like the support driven community, for instance, like everyone's like kind of on board with AI already, and they're just looking at how they can use it best. Whereas kind of the people who aren't working in customer support are all like, oh, it's going to take their jobs, it's going to make it horrible. And it's like, no, we want this. Like this is going to be great for us. We don't have to answer the repetitive stuff. Like we can do the things that we have on our to-do list, like for weeks that we'd never get around to because of the day-to-day. So yeah, I think like it's definitely going to change it, but I think we still like we have like Reddit alerts set up for anyone who's talking about like AI customer support and stuff, and like all it ever is just people like hating on it. And it's like, and the examples they're given are just like so like abstract, or like they're things they've seen in the news, as opposed to like real use cases, like companies like yours, companies like the clients that we work with, where it's making a real difference. It's meaning that they can do kind of other things. But yeah, we've definitely seen kind of experiences of our customers who are saying like, oh yeah, it's great we don't have to deal with these things, but it means like it's so much more intense in a day because like everything we deal with is just like more complex. Which yeah, like I guess you never kind of think about its second order impact or whatever, where things can kind of go um, unintended consequences, right? So,
Yeah.
but I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think it changes the skill set a little bit, right? Like
Yeah,
if
yeah.
those easy things are definitely taken care of, then that comprehensiveness and the
Hmm.
complexity and being able to manage it is definitely huge. I like what you say about, it's less about are we going to implement it or not, or do we even want to touch it? But now it's more
Mm.
about how are we actually going to use it, and where and when. And personally, I always find it a little bit like tough because there's so many things out there. Like there's an AI tool for everything,
Mm.
no
Yeah.
matter what you can possibly think of. So I think trying to lower the entry barrier of understanding of like, okay, well, I know kind of what is the menu I'm choosing from, what
Hmm.
is going to be the one that I want to use, and
Yeah.
kind of how to start going about it was kind of the trigger for this conversation of like, okay, well, let's try and help people get at least a roadmap to get going.
Yeah, it's something we hear a lot because we whenever we kind of get in these kind of bigger clients coming in, we always ask them like, what's the kind of process you're going through? And everyone's got a slightly different process. There's some like commonalities between them, but it generally just kind of starts with a lot of people Googling, and like just a lot and then it's kind of like, well, how do you actually validate who are like the best ones? If everyone's providing AI and you can't see it unless you implement it to some extent, then it's hard to kind of make a decision about which one you want to go with. So I actually spent a few hours last week kind of putting together like a bit of a guide exactly for this, because so many people are doing it, and we just thought it'd be useful to kind of tick off all the bits that the kind of do's and don'ts and whatnot. Even if it's not us, like we're kind of bullish just on AI customer support as a whole, and so anything we can do to kind of grow that, like ultimately we just don't want people to be wasting their lives doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Like they should be doing the more interesting bits of their role.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm happy to kind of just kind of
I
get
mean, we're
started.
already
Yeah.
we're already
Oh,
going.
we're going. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'm Mike. I'm one of the founders of My Ask AI. So we build AI support agents for SaaS businesses. So we basically allow you to kind of connect your knowledge in a variety of different forms, whether that be from your help center, your website, your Notion, Drive, etc., and many others, to train an AI that can answer questions only about your business. And we can let you deploy that in a number of ways, whether that's through a widget on your site or through an integration with Zendesk, Intercom, HubSpot, including Zendesk tickets as well. So we're all about kind of helping you solve those tier one kind of support requests and the easier things, so your agents can focus on the things that are a bit more complex and a bit more interesting, hopefully. A couple of the things about our products which kind of really stand out are the ability to kind of aggregate and summarize the conversations that are being had with the AI. So you can start to build up pictures of common questions, where the AI might be falling down, and how you can provide documentation support to kind of build that up. We've been going about 18 months, 2 years now, which sounds short, but actually we were some of the first people in this space to be using this technology in this way. So we're kind of, in a way, world experts on this kind of stuff. And one of the most interesting things for us has just been kind of learning more about kind of customer support from doing our own, and we still do our own customer support as well. Obviously using our own technology too. But that's been kind of one of the best kind of learning journeys, and probably one of the most humbling things as well, because we don't have a background in this stuff, and having to learn to kind of sometimes leave your emotions at the door and trying to kind of empathize a lot more with people who just want to use your product and they just want to kind of get the most out of it, and try to deal with any frustrations and things like that has been kind of a real learning curve for us that has been quite beneficial. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you for the introduction, and obviously telling us a lot about your background and the time that you've experienced as well. I'm really curious because you said, it comes from everywhere. And just before you said, it's less about people really wondering if they should implement it or not, or kind of they just need to decide how to use
Yeah.
it. So I'm curious. You said you're early in the space, and it's more about people understanding what they need to do to prepare to implement it as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you would think. How can somebody prepare to implement a type of solution like that? Because it is going to go in the right direction, but obviously you want to make sure it's set up right in the first place.
Yeah, sure. So I think like probably the first thing is to kind of take a look at the questions that you're getting in, and obviously you'll have kind of some intuitive sense of the types of questions you're getting in, but often the only way you can really do that is by pulling sample, take the last, I don't know, 200 to 500 tickets and do the kind of groundwork to work out what are the types of questions we're getting in. And you can usually kind of categorize these in some way to maybe something like these are the ones that could be answered purely from knowledge base articles that we have already. Then some might be things that could also still be answered based on it's an FAQ or an article or something like that, but we don't have the knowledge there. And then there's things that start going into whether you need account access, or whether it's kind of a deep troubleshooting thing or something that's going to take kind of multi-steps. Once you kind of have split into those three kind of very high level categories, that will give you a bit of an idea about what sort of impacts AI could have, because basically for those first two categories, AI is going to be very good. And it will start to give you a bit of an idea before you've done kind of any implementation of anything, what the potential opportunity could be for using AI. Next thing I'll probably do is look at whether there's any kind of formulaic processes which are very determinative or very deterministic that you can separate out from any AI flow. So AI is kind of one of these tools where when you have the AI hammer, everything looks like a nail, and kind of it can get overly used, right? Because people are like, oh, I'm going to use it to collect every bit of information, and really it's very good for kind of very vague or long tail questions, but there's still cases where forms and things are going to work a lot better. And so like working out if it's like a bug report, for instance, a lot of the time you probably have a very good kind of bug collection process, or if you want to book a demo and collect some information for that, there's no need to be using AI for that, and it's probably going to be a worse experience a lot of the time. You don't need something chatting to you to get this information. It's probably just a form. So separating out kind of all those things first. it'll also mean that you kind of are going to bring kind of AI costs down as well, because like most AI is charged based on tickets or resolutions or conversations. And so the fewer you put through, the cheaper it's going to be for you as well. And sometimes it can get quite expensive depending on the service provider you're using. So I think kind of separating out what those things are that you want to focus on is a good kind of first step.
Really making sure that you organize the focuses and the different types of groupings that you have
Yeah.
into these kind of major buckets. I mean, you said that you don't necessarily have a full background of support, and it's been an
Mm-hmm.
experience for you still doing your own.
Yeah.
Uh, how's that experience been? Have you seen a big shift? I mean, you're using your own tool, you're using AI as well. Have you seen a big disparity where that human touch is really important?
Yeah, so I think like still for any super early stage business, I wouldn't use AI if I was kind of the very starting of my business. I still think it's incredibly important in talking to users while you're still forming a product. Um, I think as soon as it gets to a point where you have some semblance of product market fit and you're starting to spend a bit too long in a day maybe on any of these support queries, probably it's basically probably at the point at which you think it makes sense to write documentation. That's probably at the point where you might start wanting to use AI. And that was the case for us for the first kind of 3 months or so. Um, we just kind of did it all ourselves, all through kind of live chat. One of the problems also being our customers come from kind of all over the world, and so like trying to deal with all those different time zones and still provide quick responses can be quite difficult. But yeah, as we kind of start to grow, we realize, okay, we've got to use kind of our own solution to do this, not only because it's good from a marketing perspective, but also because it can genuinely help us and we can kind of use it to kind of dog food our own products. We can work out what are the things we want to get out of it, what are the things we want to learn. And also when we want to hand over to a person, because ultimately, I think one of the things anyone implementing AI should be aware of is that you should always be given a route out to talk to a person, because it's always going to be one of the biggest frustrations for people, and you're just going to get them kind of mashing the keyboard, typing person, human, talk to someone, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen. And so I think it's important to give them that route out so they don't feel like they're trapped in a loop of some description. But ultimately, I think like so much of this comes down to messaging and how you explain it to people. People hate change. People hate like that they feel like they can be served by a bot. They most likely from like a hangover of chatbots from the last like 10, 15 years, which have been like a lot more kind of take you down a path and then you're stuck somewhere and you can't get out. Whereas obviously the Gen AI chatbot's very, very different story and kind of can answer so many more questions in so many more fields. But I think trying to explain the AI as almost like a premium feature, as something that's like an add-on. This is something that we've been using with like our premium customers, and we're going to bring down to some of the lower level plans and things like that, or making it clear that they can still talk to people at any time, whether that be by pressing a button, typing a phrase, something like that. And also kind of explaining the trade-offs with people, because a lot of the times, like I'll go onto a website of a SaaS product that we use, and I'll see there's going to be an answer in 3 hours, and like it's not a bad response time necessarily, but most of the time when you want to do something, you want to do it right there and then, and it's not going to be practical to obviously have people responding kind of sub minute, sub second. Whereas if you can kind of explain to someone, look, you can speak to a person, it'll be 3 hours, or you can speak to the AI and it solves, say, 60% of your queries right now. Showing kind of that other people are using it, showing this kind of social proof, then I think that is a good way to kind of start making people a bit more comfortable with trying it out, even if it's just kind of a first step. And you can also kind of explain that starting to use it is a way that allows the agent to kind of gather more information that will allow them to solve the ticket quicker, even if it's asynchronously as well. So I think it's just kind of about explaining this is here to help you. It's not here because we're cost cutting. It's not here because we're just evil people. We're trying to use this thing to help you get on with your day faster. I think that's quite an important thing.
I love that. I think getting people, obviously, they're there to solve a problem, and if we can solve that problem without you having to wait, it's awesome.
Exactly.
Um, I do like that you say, it's super early stage. It's not necessarily good because you really do want to talk to your customers.
Yeah.
One of the reasons, in my experience, that we haven't fully rolled out the solution, for example, would be because we understand and we know that our ticket types, our systems are too varied, and it does
Yeah.
require a bit of a double check and a verification first before giving that proper answer. So I
Mhm.
do think that if you are that kind of early stage and you have a lot of varying, or I would say deconstructed problem types that require investigation, like tier 1.5 a little bit, they might be easy, but you need to check something first.
Yeah.
Then for sure, I like that you're not like, yeah, just everybody go and do the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, well, I think you're exactly right. I think the ultimately the fit of AI is going to be different to every business. I think while I would advocate that every kind of business past a certain stage should be using AI, that doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be a direct reply messenger bot, for example. Like it can just be a co-pilot or an aid. It can be just something that generates note replies to every response, so you can then decide what information you want to use. It doesn't have to be that thing that is like customer facing right away, kind of putting information out to them. And I think if you were getting like a 10% resolution or something, probably makes more sense just to have it kind of internally as a tool to improve your agents efficiency and performance, rather than have something that is going to be passing off to people kind of 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, indeed. And setting that expectation of resolution is something that I've seen happening quite more recently now that there are much more customer facing
Mm.
interactions with AI, where people are actually being very transparent and, hey, it's going to solve most of your problems. Maybe it can't solve every problem,
Yeah.
but being upfront and transparent, I think, sets a good example and a tone, at least for what customers can expect. Because if you're just forcing it to like those old just decision tree chatbots,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
are going to end up somewhere. Then you're going to get those people on the phone with the IVR saying,
Yeah, I
representative.
was just going to say, yeah. Yeah, just trying to like find the secret code to get
Press
through, isn't
zero.
it?
Yeah. Indeed, indeed. I think there are also a lot of opportunities. You mentioned like it can be a co-pilot, it can be, automating tasks, it can
Mhm.
be helping to summarize or leave notes. What are the different kind of opportunities? Obviously, there's customer facing interaction, Gen AI bots,
Yeah.
and things that you can actually interact with. What are some of the other really kind of AI tools that you see are very popular to use in the customer support space?
Yeah, so I think we're hearing kind of more people using kind of tagging and classification tools for conversations, so that again that they can start to build this kind of picture up of what people are asking about, what they're talking about. They can see kind of trends over time. So tools that do that kind of thing. Um, I've seen a lot more people talking about AI QA tools as well. Obviously, you talk to people, everyone's got a kind of different way of doing this. Some people are just using spreadsheets to do it, but yeah, seeing how people are kind of validating huge volumes of conversations, checking that they're on brand, on tone, accurate, all that kind of stuff. I think that's a really good use case. So even if you're not using the AI to respond, you're using it to help improve kind of your quality of responses and kind of monitoring kind of agent performance and stuff. I think that's another good use case. I think kind of like within a lot of these AI chat tools as well, as included, one of the things that I think is really powerful is that they actually show kind of a mirror up to your documentation and your knowledge base, because really they'll only answer the things that they have information on. And so if it's not answering, it's usually because the information is not there. And so it starts to show you like how you can kind of improve that and where the common questions are coming up. And then like kind of building on that, you've got tools, whether they do it as part of the product or kind of separate tools that allow you to kind of create knowledge articles from existing tickets, from other knowledge base articles and things like that. It's a feature that kind of we have in our product as well at the moment. And so enabling you to kind of perpetually iterate on your knowledge base. So not only does that have the benefit that it's going to improve your AI's performance, but it also means that anyone who doesn't want to use the AI and just wants to kind of self-serve through your docs also gets that improvement. So I think it's kind of gonna massively improve that kind of feedback loop of where the gaps are in it, so everyone can have this constantly kind of iterated and improved on help process, I guess.
Nice. So really, to get started, bucket those conversations and those ticket types into groups of what is really solvable by AI, what really needs a human, and kind of what's the
Hmm.
blended area in a
Yeah.
sense. I guess decide on your use case of where you're
Hmm.
going to find the most value from it, right?
Yeah.
Is it going to be QA? Is it going to be that customer facing interaction? Are you at a point in which your documentation or your ticket types are standard enough to
Yeah.
have that kind of help? And then you can see the gaps in your documentation and your tooling in that sense, where you can actually get more information and iterate and make it better and improve the knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you seen a interaction? I mean, you mentioned this to me when we were talking before, that there's sometimes interaction where you get this AI talking to AI. And I know that there are tooling options that will actually write documentation for you
Hmm.
based on those conversations as well. Is that one of those interactions that people should be wary about, or what are some of these negative impact type of interactions that people should keep top of mind when they're starting to implement?
Yeah, so I think I don't think kind of AI writing knowledge articles is such a risky kind of area necessarily. Um, I think there are sometimes some differences in kind of how you would optimize a knowledge base for AI versus humans. Generally, it's going to be pretty aligned because um, the AI will interpret the information like a human a lot of the time, but there are kind of some things where depending on your users, it could be done in a different way. So, for instance, um, AI can have a tendency to be quite verbose and quite kind of overly explaining of things, which I'm sure you've seen kind of ChatGPT. You just want an answer to something, and it's going to give you this kind of long preamble about, I don't know, the fall of the Roman Empire before it kind of gets into anything. But so I think um, that sometimes can be useful for the AI itself, but for a person, it's really quite annoying. And so, kind of having this kind of concise version or like instructing it to be more concise can be quite important. Um, and then things also like AI doesn't tend to, all of the solutions out there today, and this will probably change kind of within the next 12 months considerably, but right now, it doesn't deal as well with kind of um, tables, especially more complex tables or images or videos within content. And so, kind of in those cases, you just need to be careful that you are explaining whatever that table is, or you are explaining that image with like a good caption. Or explain what's in that video, or finding a way to also upload the and transcribe the video to get that information out. Which are obviously things like if you were just building for AI, then you wouldn't use the video, you wouldn't use the image, you might not use the table, but they are things that are hugely valuable to people when they're consuming this information. So there's this kind of little bit of a disconnect there. But ultimately, if you kind of cater for the AI in a way, in some ways you can kind of treat it as like you're trying to make your documentation more accessible, especially for kind of visually impaired people, because ultimately, like tables and structures are going to be things that are harder for even with screen readers for visually impaired people, as are kind of trying to view and understand images. And so, like, if you are catering for those sorts of users as well, then it's also going to improve kind of the AI. So it's kind of this unintended benefits type thing that can arise. I think also like on AI talking to AI, a lot of tools now have things where it'll only respond the first time rather than getting into this kind of perpetual conversation where you just have this. I still love. I think it's you that shared the graphic of the AI talking to the AI, so one summarizing it and one kind of explaining it out and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I
Hey,
think
look, the AI turned this one sentence into a
yeah.
full email, and on the other side is the person, hey, this AI summarized this entire email in one sentence.
Yeah, exactly. You just want people just talk to each other with one line. Don't kind of overly do it. But yeah, seems to be the way that people like to go. They want to look like they're writing this extensive stuff, don't they?
I think it's funny. I mean, we're now on the topic of people really wanting to use it and getting really excited about it. Have you seen just people get really overly excited about it and just use it in very, I don't know, I want to say rambunctious ways, like that just really don't make sense?
Yeah, I think like so when we actually started the business prior to going after kind of the customer support market, we had a much more kind of broad use product, and that led us to have people who were converting things like their notes into books through kind of iterations of prompts. Like we had one person who had like 100 different prompts set up to kind of create a book. We had people who, lots of people want to make kind of AI coaches of themselves. So like you had lots of kind of consultants who are like, oh, I want to make myself into a coach so people can access me anytime. Um, I think the most common one you kind of get is when people see that you have an AI chat on your site, most people, or like, and you, if you get any student traffic, then everyone just wants to use it to write their homework. So like when we were early on and kind of, as I say, less focused on customer support and we are more kind of just chat with your data type product, everyone would just go into our customer support chat, our live chat, which was just us, no kind of AI at that time. And they would just be asking questions about relationships, about how they deal with their boyfriends or partners. They would be asking questions about like chemistry, all sorts of things, like just to try and get answers. And so like it's kind of nice also that like we don't have to deal with with them anymore. Our AI will just say, "Sorry, I can't answer anything about that," and just kind of uh, politely suggest that they ask a question about Ask AI or go away.
Gotcha, gotcha. I mean, for me, you use it all the time.
Mhm.
In a way, I saw this one time. This guy ended up convincing the bots to give him a car for $1. Like some people have been able to do some crazy things with it.
Yeah,
And I think the use cases are endless a bit, right? When
hmm
you're kind of focusing on it and really being able to narrow down implementing it in a way that will have the biggest impact to actual customers and be able to actually support them in a way that is beneficial for them.
yeah,
When do you think somebody would be successful with it? Like when you're implementing it, obviously you've bucketed everything out, you've rolled it out, maybe you have a customer facing use case. How do you measure the actual success when it comes to is it just resolution percentages? Is it satisfaction alongside that? What should people look out for when measuring the success of their rollout?
yeah. So I think just on your dollar car point, it's actually it's one that comes up a lot. You also get like Google telling people to eat rocks, and the lawyer who used a made up legal case in the US and all that kind of stuff. And I think ultimately, like those are badly set up bots. Like
Yeah.
it's not that the AI is bad, it's that the person kind of instructing it and setting up is bad, because there is no reason nowadays that an AI should kind of respond outside of its remit unless you give it that kind of latitude. But yeah, that's just a kind of aside.
I mean, hey, hot tip for people implementing
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah,
train
yeah.
it right.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's not hard nowadays to say like just answer questions about this topic. Don't talk about it if you don't know about it. Um, but on your point about kind of measuring success, I think yeah, AI resolution or deflection rates are obviously kind of the big most obvious one. I think part of the problem with those can be though that um, people sometimes get to a point where they're frustrated in a conversation, they just go away. You have this kind of time window where they can if they don't ask for a human, then it's assumed resolved. And so like some of these things are like, I think it's granting a very generous view to what AI resolve can be. And so I think you take AI resolution as like a data point, one of them, not all of them. And I think it's also important to look at, okay, what questions couldn't be answered within a conversation. So we call it the IDK rate, the I don't know rate. So what percent of questions that were asked couldn't be answered by the AI? And then it's a difficult question then as the next step as, well, is this something that it had the available information for and couldn't answer? Is it something that is completely off topic and it shouldn't answer? Um, or is there kind of some other reason for it not answering because it just is always going to need a human for it? And so kind of breaking down, you've got AI resolution rate, the IDK rate. CSAT's an interesting one as well, because I think it's going to be interesting how people start to rate these conversations with AI because they're not human, and people probably be more honest, I think, about the ratings, because giving like a really bad rating to a human, you kind of know that it could have an impact on like their job or their performance review or something like that, and so you're probably always going to skew more positive. Whereas if you know you're talking to an AI, then you might kind of just go down a route of just being brutally honest, or you might even have some kind of other biases about it that mean that you don't like AI. You're just gonna you've got this vendetta and you want to get rid of it. So I think generally, what you'll probably see is the CSAT rates are going to be slightly lower than with people, but also it's also one of these kind of volume games as well. Like if it means that you can get an 80% or 90% CSAT by dealing with 10,000 conversations as opposed to a 95% with 1,000. And also kind of factoring in those turnaround times being a few seconds as opposed to a few hours or days even. I think you just kind of have to look at it as a holistic picture of like how you're providing support to the biggest number of people in the most effective way. And so, yeah, I think like AI resolution, IDK rate, and yeah, CSAT, but with a kind of
Nuance.
a nuance to it. We also, yeah, we equate kind of AI resolution to handover, and again, the that can also depend on how easy you make it to hand over. Like you could have 100% AI resolution rate if you never find a way for it to hand over, right? So, like some tools, it'll be more obvious than others, and you kind of have to be careful that your system's not being gamed, basically, because you're hiding away like where the contact form is. In the same way that businesses historically will hide away their support pages or the contact forms because they can't deal with a volume necessarily. You have to make sure that if you are giving every possible opportunity to them for them to hand over and they don't, then that's probably going to be a much more accurate resolution rate than something where you're hiding it a little bit.
Yeah, of course. And every metric can be gamed in that way, right? If
Yeah,
you want,
exactly.
if you're like, okay, we're gonna get this one metric to 100%
Yeah.
resolution, then you're never gonna offer any other things. Just be like, yeah, I resolved it. It was great. It was done.
Yeah.
Sweet, let's go. And to the point of like customer satisfaction, of course,
Mhm.
like dealing with a human versus a bot is going to have those intrinsic biases,
Yeah.
and you know, obviously, people are going to interact with it very differently. And there, we may also just shift the way that we have metrics set up. It might be customer effort score in terms of how easy was it, or
Yeah.
how difficult was it to work with the bot to solve the problem, or just
Mm.
in general to get your issue solved. In that sense, and I think it's always funny when you say like when you're interacting with a human versus when you're interacting with AI. It's also just a very different experience. Also for
Yeah.
us as agents, I've now had to clarify a bunch of times, like, no, I'm not a bot. I'm
Oh,
a person.
yeah.
Like,
The
don't
number of
worry.
times early, yeah, the number of times early doors we had a similar situation where people would ask like a load of questions and then they get to the end of it and they say, "Are you an AI?" And you're like, "Oh, that's really sad that I haven't come off as a human through the rest of that conversation." But yeah,
Either AI is really good or I
yeah,
sound robotic.
exactly. Or I'm robotic, and then you just kind of like reviewing your conversational history, just like, oh, maybe I should be a bit more empathetic. Yeah, no, it is quite funny.
And I mean, you've been doing your own support for a while now. You've been
Mhm.
interacting in that way. Is there a specific skill that you've had to develop or that you've learned through that experience?
Yeah, I definitely think kind of an empathy and putting myself in like customer shoes is probably the biggest one. I very early on, if you get kind of an irate customer coming in, and this was a stage like within the first few months where things grew so quickly that there were just bugs kind of popping up everywhere and people were having issues. Um, you're getting to um, your first reaction to someone being irate is to get irate yourself, and like they're swearing at you or they're doing whatever, and you're thinking like, "Oh no, I won't take this." But actually, like the framing that really helped me was that no, this person must really want to use our product. There must be some real value that they're getting from it that we're not providing in some way. We're frustrating them in some way, and we need to find a way that is not going to make them angry. And often we would find that the people that we were able to kind of talk down um, off the ledge, as it were, is to they actually ended up being kind of some of our most loyal customers, the ones that would leave us testimonials and things. And like as soon as kind of you just let them know that they listen to you, they see that you're responsive to things and that you are just kind of keeping that calm demeanor. I think very quickly they start to feel like a bit silly because they're kind of shouting and you're just being like really calm and just saying, no, I'm just trying to help. Like this is the sort of thing. And I think that's definitely something that we had to kind of quickly get up to speed with because I've kind of never experienced kind of real angry kind of customer before. So yeah, I think that's definitely something that helps. And now, yeah, we we're like a lot better at kind of empathizing with people and trying to help them work through things, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's something that's, for example, of course, as much as you put a bot to automate things, that can't always be the
Yeah,
case, and those are the things that really make the experience human in a sense.
yeah, for
We
sure.
we've talked a lot about advice and tips and things that we can look out for and how to start rolling things out. Would you have one last piece of advice or anything that we didn't talk about that you think people should really know about AI in the support space?
Um, I think the it's going to sound really trite, but I think like the most important thing is just kind of getting started with it as soon as possible. I think a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm just going to wait until it gets a little bit better, or it can do this thing, or it will never work for our customers because they need this kind of human touch." And I think really like you just have to frame it as like this is something that's going to help them. It's something that's going to mean that even when you're sleeping, they can get answers. It's going to be something that has instant knowledge and recall of all your knowledge. And I think as they kind of the saying goes, the best day to start was yesterday, the second best is today. And I think that really is the case because there are things that improving AI models will help with, which are going to be kind of some answer quality, all that kind of stuff. But most of the things that are going to improve kind of any AI's response are going to be things that you have to do as a business because it cannot know those things. So it's going to need to know what is the knowledge that's missing and finding those gaps. It's going to need to know more about your product. It's going to need to know. It's going to need you to tell it how you want it to kind of speak about things. And I think like those are things that take time to do. They're very iterative, and the longer you put them off, the longer it's going to take to kind of get up to speed and to start this kind of transition. So I think it's the kind of start yesterday would be my advice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna start, you can also start simple. It doesn't need to be a huge, giant thing,
Yeah,
right?
for
As
sure,
well.
for sure. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for your advice and your insights from your experience on the AI space and actually working with those customers and being able to help them and everything that you're seeing and hearing. I think it'll really help also for people just to be able to kind of get some advice in terms of like just a casual conversation. I think that not a lot of people necessarily just sit down and have.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a lot of conversations going on, but
Oh yeah.
maybe
Everyone's having the
sometimes.
same conversations in their companies, aren't they? Just not talking to one another.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Is there anywhere that people can reach out to you or talk to you about your experience or get any advice?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Mike Heap, myskai.com is the company. And we've actually just put together a kind of full guide on kind of looking to adopt AI first support. So happy to share that as well with you if you DM me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, I know. It's been a pleasure.
You as well. Have a great day.
You too.